Mom wants me to sign over 250k beneficiary check, by user Glitter Plant. My dad passed away recently and it came to light that he named me as one of the beneficiaries on his life insurance policy. My mom says that it was a mistake and that I am not supposed to be a beneficiary, just my mom. She wants me to file for the money and sign the check over to her. I'm going to go through with it, because she is my mom and blah blah whatever. But the insulting part is that my mom says I can keep $5,000 from it to throw my wedding. I only have $2,000 from my own money cause my partner and I are kinda broke. Is she being entitled? Or am I? Or both of us lol. Edit *. The reason why I think it is a mistake is because my younger sister is not listed as a beneficiary. Some updates. First of all, thank you for the advice. This has really given me different perspective on this money. I still have a lot to think about. At this point I'm thinking about investing the money in my name and then sending my mom and sister a portion the yearly dividends that I do not reinvest. Hopefully this will keep everyone happy. To answer a few questions. 1. My mom, brother, and I are all receiving a third of the payout. 2. I think the policy was drafted before my sister was born, which is why she is not a beneficiary. 3. My mom is also receiving his social security, the house, and savings etc. I did not realize that I was going to receive any sort of inheritance in the first place. 4. My mom is a good person and a good mom and we have a good relationship. I am worried this money will ruin that. Entitled Mom took my phone on airplane, by user Satchalove Richards. I was on a 6-hour flight a few years ago. I was in the window seat and there was a cute 5-ish-year-old in the middle and entitled Mom on the aisle. Before takeoff she looks at me and says, I hope you have a big bladder because we are not moving. Okay, here we go. So I had downloaded several Netflix shows and comedy specials to keep me occupied, and I put my corded earbuds in, 'cause I'm cheap, and settled in to close my eyes and relax to some Jim Gaffigan. A while later I feel my earbuds being ripped from my ears. I look over and entitled Mom has my phone in her hands trying to unlock it. Of course I was like, what are you doing, give that back. She just said I was sleeping, I wasn't, but that's not even the point, and didn't need it. Her kid did. Her kid was coloring in his coloring book by the way and was looking quite content. And the airline has movie screens in the seat backs, but I think she didn't want to pay for earbuds. She started holding the phone away from me out in the aisle and saying that I needed to let her son use it because he was bored. She got loud and a flight attendant came over. She tattled on me that I wasn't sharing my phone. Smiling face with open mouth and tightly closed eyes, she couldn't stop yelling at the attendant about what a bitch I am and how my mother should be ashamed. I was like 45 at the time, for raising such a jerk. Fortunately the flight wasn't completely full so she moved them. The flight attendant had to pry the phone out of her claw and threatened to have police waiting to arrest her if she didn't go with her. They were replaced with a lovely woman who just read her book and left me to my Netflix for the rest of the flight. Poor kid, he seemed really sweet. Too bad his mom is nuts. I got the cops called on my mom for child abandonment, and I kicked my dad in the macaroons, by user foglamp03. Wow. I can't believe I forgot about this account for nearly a year. But I was watching Reddit videos online and randomly saw my original post. And I realized I'd totally forgotten to make an update. So I've come back to give one. There will be police, and some mild brawling towards the end. Don't know if that qualifies as a trigger warning. But I just figured I'd mention it. As some know, I previously posted about my parents refusing to give back my Nintendo Switch when one of my siblings stole it. And many commenters had a lot to say about the shit my parents were doing. And to just call police or CPS if my parents ever dumped my youngest siblings off at my door without asking again. Well, I waited and waited, but there was no contact between us for around 3 months since the last time my mom called and I refused to watch my siblings without being paid. Then it finally hit. My parents called me all of a sudden wanting me to babysit. And they acted like the prior incident with the Switch never happened. I told them I was not going to babysit unless they paid me. And it'd have to be a day that I had off work. My schedule had also shifted so I no longer had Saturdays off. I actually asked my boss for that since Saturdays were the days they asked me to babysit the most. Plus picking up an extra shift was better for me financially. My dad got furious as usual and said that I needed to man up and help out. So I pointed out that he needs to stop acting like he has control over me. And technically I'm manning up for myself and my own life, like he always claimed he did at my age. Yet he always worked Saturdays and put a ton of his responsibilities on me. So he could fuck off as far as I was concerned. He started yelling violently into the phone and my mom took it away from him. I said I could only babysit Sundays because that's my only day off. And I would only do it if they paid me $30 and included pre-packed lunches, dinners, and snacks for my siblings. Because I wasn't going to waste my money providing food for them. That's not my job. And if they took anything from me, like when my Switch was stolen last time, I would get police involved to get it back. I saved the receipt when I bought it, and documented the serial numbers so I'd have no problem proving to police it's mine. My mom's bitch mode kicked in and she started swearing like a sailor that just broke a tooth at me. I let her have her rant while pretty much ignoring the phone until she realized I wasn't responding and started demanding I say something. So I said that she and Dad have my conditions. Sundays only, $30 and pre-packaged food, or they could fuck off. There was a moment of silence on the line. And then my mom went off on me again and said that my younger siblings that are 14 and 15 had to step up to help because I wasn't helping anymore, and they needed a break. I laughed and said, oh? Like how you guys gave me breaks. Like never. My mom tried to say that was different. And it was because I was the oldest child. I said that it wasn't different. They parent-feed me and I lost out on a bunch of my childhood because of it, and now I'm living my own life without them. And they are hypocrites to act like I should step up again when I'm no longer living there and they have 2 teenagers in the house that can do everything I used to do. My mom shifted into victim mode and started saying that my teenage siblings were rebelling and not listening to them. I said their bitching and moaning wasn't my problem. They need to figure out alternative childcare. I'm too busy with having a life. My dad got back on the phone and started yelling at me some more. I just laughed at him and said he was just blowing hot air. And that he was talking, but not really saying anything. My mom took the phone back and pleaded with me one more time. I reiterated Sundays only with pre-packaged food and $30. And I won't hesitate at all to call the police if any threats are made or any of my stuff gets stolen. I heard my parents start loudly yelling back and forth at each other over what to do, so I said they can just work it out and get back to me later. Then I hung up. It was right back to radio silent for about a while. Then one Saturday morning a few weeks later I was getting ready for work when there was a sudden loud and fast knock at my door. The kind where you know they're doing it with both hands. My mom's done that for years as her knocking trademark to let me know she was there. And she knows I know the sound of it very well. And the knocking was followed by what sounded like someone loudly running down the corridor. I listened through the door and could hear my 2 youngest siblings bickering with each other and tapping on the door themselves. My mother just left them outside the door and ran. But because of all the warnings I got in my last post, I had a simple plan for this. I just opened my window, climbed out, and simply walked away. My apartment is in the ground level all the way at the end of the building. And I can climb out the window I have there easily by just pulling the screen out. I called one of my neighbors that lives a few doors down. She's a sweet old lady that likes kids. And I gave her the rundown. She's known about my situation with my narcissist parents for a while now, and called police for me to tell them that there were 2 kids left abandoned in the hall after the mother pounded on a door and took off. Suffice to say, the police came and picked up my siblings. My parents called me later and were furious. I pretended to be clueless and asked what they were so mad about. My mom fully admitted she left my 2 youngest siblings at my door for me to babysit and ran. I asked if she'd just left them there without anyone answering the door. Because I was already out since I had to work Saturdays. My mom just got really quiet for a few seconds, then yelled how the hell was I supposed to know that? I countered that this was all her fault. And she literally abandoned her kids at my door on the hopes that maybe I was home, on a day I'd already told her several times I worked. Like she was trying to force me to skip a shift by trying to give me no choice but to watch them. She started making excuses, but I told her what she did was inexcusable and immature. She ended up crying, and I just let that go on for a while before asking if she was done yet. She went back into bitch mode and yelled at me the police were charging her with child abandonment. I said that wasn't really my fault since she left the kids in the hall. Then said I would have called police on her as well if I was home and she refused to come back for the kids. Because I told them before that I work Saturdays now. So I refused to be trapped into babysitting anymore. The rest of the call was some more pointless bickering on her end, and didn't really go anywhere. My mom somehow ended up getting off with just a slap on the wrist and a fine because she somehow convinced the cops that she honestly thought I was home and would babysit, or so my next sibling said when he texted me. I don't know how much the fine was. But the fact she had to pay one should make her think twice about just leaving kids at my door and running off again. My dad wasn't charged as well because he was at work, and he also claimed to be unaware of her intent to leave my siblings at my door. I was told he was actually pissed at my mom for doing that. The pot and kettle situation this was had me laughing so hard. But I guess I have to give credit to my old man if he'd have never done what my mom did. Either way, that left my mom with a police record. That's a first strike in the eyes of the law, I think. After that, things really boiled over on Thanksgiving. My parents invited me over, and I was fully expecting it to be some kind of trap. And it was. At dinner my dad just sat at the table smoking a cigarette and acting like he was in charge. He had my mom sit me down and then said enough was enough, and he was ending this farce. He told me that I needed to move my ass back home and pay rent to help their mortgage and bills, as well as help parent my siblings because they don't have any time to themselves anymore, and the fine my mom had to pay hit their finances hard. I just said no, plain and simple. And I kept that up no matter how much he tried to order me. He ended up getting so angry that he actually attacked me. And he's not a small man. I thankfully am not either, as I'd been hitting the gym for months, and learned some amateur fighting. I had my steel-toed boots on as well. So I gave him a swift kick in the balls when he came at me, then punched him hard enough in the face that he was down on the floor in an instant. He landed with quite a thud and even threw up because of the pain while clutching his goodie bag. Then I told my parents that I had my phone recording in my pocket the whole time. And I could easily prove he attacked me first. My dad told me to get out of his house and never come back. And I obliged. But not before taking a turkey leg off the platter and riding home with it to eat. Since then only my siblings have called or texted me. They said that I'd walked out like a boss, and there are now running jokes in the house now about Dad's poor balls. I spent Christmas with a friend's family, and I've got a standing invite to come back for other holidays. Edit. I fixed a couple errors. She don't call me, so I don't call her, by user Angela, not my name. Since the age of 12, I had a number of dogs thanks to my mom's love of puppies. She'd fall in love instantly with the little fluff balls. I was actually scared of dogs before we got our first one, and she knew it. It's kinda messed up, but that's a whole different story. The thing is, she would never do the things necessary to own a dog. There were never any vet's visits, and all the day-to-day chores were left to me and my brother. Of course it fostered responsibility in us, but it also gave us the chance to bond with the creatures. This is why it was so hurtful whenever my mom decided the dogs were too much and she'd give them away. The fact of the matter is that she only likes dogs when they're puppies. Anything beyond that, she can't be bothered. The same can be said of her children and grandchildren. Growing up, I thought my mom was cool. She was always at my school in elementary, volunteering and whatnot. She'd come around my friends and they all loved her. This was true up until middle school. She made much fewer appearances at my school then. I'd usually talk about how cool my mom was, but none of my friends ever got to see it. By the time I got to college, she was this grouchy, sleepy, agoraphobic old woman. Still somewhat tolerable, but not nearly as cool. I didn't know why this was the case until my niece's 13th birthday. My youngest niece was, I dare say, my mom's favorite grandchild. She and her parents lived with us for a few months when she was really little. According to my mom, my niece made everything right in the world. She adored that little girl. It was actually kinda sweet to witness. Anyway, they moved out, life moved on, and suddenly my niece is 12 years old with a cell phone. I had been texting her for a little while, but my mom had never had her number. I tried to fix that, and the convo went something like this. Me, hey, niece's birthday is coming up. Mom, I know, she's gonna be a whole teenager. Me, you should call her. Mom, I don't have her number. Me, I have it. I'll give it to you. Mom, well, she never called me, so why should I call her? Me, because it's her birthday. I walked away very confused. That was a strange thing to say about someone who once meant the world to her. It was even stranger to put the weight of two-way communication on someone who just got her first phone. But then I realized, my niece isn't a puppy anymore. She's practically an adult with her own thoughts and feelings. And the fact that my mom wasn't a thought on my niece's young brain brought out the brat in my mom. It's sad. Child tries to steal money, parents says I should give it to him, by user Gaming Predator 69. This happened a couple years ago before COVID, but it still makes me laugh. Me and a friend were at a bowling alley, not bowling but playing pool at the front. The building also had an arcade and laser quest etc. We were there midday, maybe 1 to 2 p.m. on a weekend, so the arcade was flooded with kids. Me and my friend were near the bar playing pool away from the rest of the arcade. Pool was £1 a game and the change machine that gave £1 coins didn't work, so we had to use the 50p machine near the arcade. I put a £5 note in the machine and went to put in a second. When a child comes over and tries to take the coins in the tray at the bottom, I notice him and put my hand in the way so he can't take them. Once I pick them up, he is trying to get the coins out of my hand. I bring my hand up so he can't reach and he starts crying, when of course his mother comes over to see the kid pointing at my hand and crying. I know it looked like I probably took something off him, so I was kind of awkward and didn't know what to say. I assumed she would be understanding and I tried to explain. She wasn't understanding. She started ranting that I must have took his money and wouldn't let me get a word in. Eventually a member of staff comes over and asks what happened. With the child's mother ranting, another member of staff comes over and separates us. I explain I was just getting change and the child was trying to take the coins from the machine whilst I was putting in another note. They understand and asked what I actually did when the child took the coins. I explain the kid didn't actually get the coins before I got to them. The person using the other change machine also vouches for me. I get the rest of my change and go back to my friend at the pool tables. I should note, the entire time I was talking to the member of staff the child was screaming and his mother hadn't stopped ranting. I'm not sure if the staff kicked them out or they left, but the last I saw of them was at the front door, with the member of staff stood by the entrance. I honestly feel kind of bad for the kid who must have only been like 4 to 5 years old. He was wandering around unsupervised in an arcade, probably unable to even play anything, and then stuck with his ranting mother before being dragged out. Why take your kid to an arcade and not give them money to play anything? I've learned my lesson and now I know to take the change ASAP when there's children in the vicinity.